Well, welcome everyone. Good morning if you're just coming in and getting settled. I'm Kat, if I haven't met you yet. I'm just gonna say good morning to those that I see. Deborah, good morning. Karen, Becky, Mariah, Mom, good morning. I see you're on here too. So nice to have you. For those of you that have your screen off, you're welcome to have your screen off at any point. I do give feedback, so if you, for cues, and it is kind of helpful as well with some of these restorative postures, it really is a little bit like the restorative postures that we're going to be doing. It's a little bit like the Princess and the Pea syndrome, where it's like that one small crease of a blanket or that lowering up or down can sometimes make or break the comfort level in the pose. So if it is a newer practice to you, you can turn on your screen now. I'll come over and watch at different points in the practice. We're going to use a chair. Any chair can be fine. You can also use the edge of a bed, the edge of a couch. If you're using a chair, make sure it just doesn't have wheels on it. I'm using a yoga chair for demoing today, but like a dining room. You're gonna wanna start to have also a bolster if you have it, or a blanket or a pillow, and 2 blocks or 2 sturdy books. 3 blocks if you have them. If not, just we can work with 2. And then we're gonna get started using the chair today. Take your chair, whatever chair you're working with, or you can use it with the edge of a bed, and take your chair so that it's on your sticky mat so that you have a nice place and a nice foundation. And then you're gonna wanna have your block. And if this is new for you, feel free just to watch. We're just gonna use the block as a boundary between our feet. So when we sit onto the edge of something, we really wanna go and have really kind of aim for about the center of your hamstrings with the edge of the chair or the edge of the couch. And then take your block on the lowest side, the lowest facet, place the block in between your feet. And then from here, just take your hands to the tops of your knees, almost like you're putting your hand is a glove, and your knee is really the ball that fits that. So you're really making a good fit and a good framework. And then start by just tilting your pubic bone forward towards the front of the mat. And as you do that, there's gonna be a slight lift of the sternum forward and up. And then really see if you can draw your knees directly over the center of your feet. So there's a widening of the kneecaps into the hands, and allow the widening of the collarbones to start to happen as the hands start to press out a little bit more to the right and to the left. And then once you have that organization, you can take your gaze, if you're looking at me from the front, maybe start to take your gaze just towards the front of your mat. And then squeeze the block in between the inner arches of the feet and really see where you're plugging into your feet and where you're maybe not plugging in. Really spread the toes to connect your big toe mound, the pinky toe mound, and the center of your heel. Really plug your feet down and in. And then let's start with the feet. Really connect your feet today. Push down into your big toe mound. As you push your big toe mound down, think that there's a slight internal rotation of the tops of your thighs, but keep the knees directly over the center of your feet. So do that one more time. Push down through your big toe mounds so you can internally rotate your thighs, but really allow that internal rotation to push your hips out a little bit more to the side. So there's a little bit more spreading of the low back at the sacrum. And then start to tilt your pubic bone forward to lift your chest and lift your sternum up. And then allow your tailbone to really draw back and down. So as you do this, really sort of being aware that when you push down into your feet, it moves your thighs and your pelvis so that you have more space in your low back. And when you push your hands a little bit wider into your knees, that also correlates to your collarbone. And when you open up through your collarbone, using that boundary of hand to knee and knee to hand, it gives you more space to actually physically breathe. And then spread the toes from the big toe all the way to the pinky toe edge of the foot. Really press down to the pinky toe edge of the foot so there's a slight external rotation of the thigh and the pelvis. And then allow that external rotation, again, to lift your sternum forward and up. Think your collarbones go out wide to push a little bit wider into your hands and into your knees. And then stay for a breath. Notice what's in front of you. what's behind you, what's to the left and to the right. And then add the breath with that. On an inhale, breathe up, down, left, right, front and back. Exhale, feel like you're coming really back to yourself at the center today. And then perhaps close the eyes just for a moment to really begin to drop in and settle into your practice. Where do you need to go today? Maybe where's the space in the body that you need? Maybe just allowing yourself to find this gentle practice. We're going to be twisting today in our practice. So really sort of observing where you go deeper and maybe where you pull back. Allow yourself to just explore that space without any judgment. And then settle in with an intention, with a breath. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Open exhale out through the mouth. And then keep your hands on top of your knees. Blink the eyes open. You can watch me for just a moment. We're going to start with just a gentle basic twist. We're going to use a framework as a clock today to really observe this sort of directional cueing and using our imagination. So imagine in front of you is 12 o'clock. Imagine behind you is 6 o'clock. To your right is 3, and to your left is about 9 o'clock. We're going to take our right hand to our left knee. And I want you to take your left hand to the base of your seat, or if you're using a couch or any other prop, really kind of put it behind you, but grab a hold. And then before twisting and rotating, think that your right shoulder moves towards 12 o'clock. Don't turn yet. Really see if you can gaze out in front of you, really imagining 12 o'clock, and keep the engagement of the feet into the block. Really squeeze the block in between your feet. See if you can draw your right shoulder a little bit more towards 12 o'clock, and then start to turn your left shoulder back towards 6. Now turn the torso, turn the gaze back to look back towards 6 o'clock. Keep moving the tip of your right shoulder blade a little bit more towards 12, and then open your left collarbone back towards 6, finding an X in the center of the chest. And then spin around yourself, keep moving around yourself and around yourself. Notice if you can start to plug your right hip back into the hip socket. And when you plug your right hip back into the hip socket, your left knee moves forward a little bit more into your right hand. So you're really evening out through the pelvis. To keep the pelvis nice and neutral and stable, and really just rotate from the upper thoracic spine. As you turn, maybe even gaze back, but use your right eye to move all the way around yourself. Stay for one more full breath. Inhale. As you exhale, reach just your left hand straight up. Keep your right hand on top of your left knee. Rotate the torso back to face front. And then take your left hand on top of your right knee, making an X in the center. From here, hands stay on top of the knees. So start to really use this X at the center of the elbows to really notice this center point in your torso and your body. On an inhale, find a little baby cow pose. Look forward, look out. Really allow your pubic bone to come forward, your sternum to lift. As you exhale, keep the hands on the knees. Go into your inner shell. Tuck the chin and round through the spine. Do that 2 more times. Inhale to cow pose. Look forward, look out. Exhale to cat. Tuck the chin in. Release through the sides of the neck. Really allow yourself to find this internal shell. Really finding that hard exterior. 1 more time. Inhale to cow pose, look forward and out. Exhale, tuck the chin in and round. Inhale, come back to neutral. Keep your left hand on your right knee, and then take your right hand to the base of the seat, back and behind you. You can also keep it onto whatever object you're using today for your practice. So before you really rotate and twist back, really find yourself at the center. See if you can draw your left shoulder in the center of your knees and thighs. Imagine your left shoulder is at 12 o'clock, and then start to turn your right shoulder back a little bit more towards 6 o'clock. Sit up tall, really lengthen your pubic bone forward to allow the sternum to lift forward and up. And as you do that, really get the pelvis involved. Think your left hip moves back a little bit into the hip socket. As you do that, it moves your right knee forward a little bit more into your hand. Do that 1 more time. So when we tilt from our pelvis, we open up more space. So we have more space around the low back and the sacrum to then start to bring into the twist. Think your left hip moves back into the hip socket. Draw your right knee a little bit more into the hand at the left. And then start to go around yourself, spinning, looking back a little bit if it's accessible today for you in the neck. And maybe you just want to stay. Maybe you notice that one side might be easier for you than another. Maybe one side is harder. Maybe this is a harder side. So just observing, but observing, of course, in yoga without any judgment. And as you breathe in, breathe up, down, left, right, front and back. Exhale, feel like you're coming around yourself, but you're keeping yourself really at your center point. So as we turn and as we notice all of our circumstances and our surroundings, we really have a good root and foundation of where our own personal center is. And then keep looking back over your right shoulder, and the tip of your left shoulder blade moves your right collarbone a little bit wider and open towards 6 o'clock, finding an X in the center of the chest. And then stay for one more breath. Reach your right hand all the way straight up. And then exhale, make that X at the elbows, right hand on top of the left knee. And then one more time with the cat-cow, 3 rounds. On an inhale, look forward, look out. Really think that the sternum moves you forward from your pelvis. As you exhale, tuck the chin and end round the spine. Do that 2 more times. Inhale to cow pose. Exhale, tuck the chin and end round, find your cat. One more round. Inhale to cow pose. Exhale, tuck the chin and end round, find your cat pose. Then inhale, come back to center, release the hands, and then take your block, just move your blocks just for a moment off into the side. And then we're gonna take the chair a little bit closer towards the back of the mat. And if you have any edge, so I'll say chair, but really when I say chair, it's any edge that you're working with, since I'm not sure what you're working with today. And we're gonna take our 2 blocks. So feel free just to watch this setup if it's new to you. We're gonna come into a bridge pose from here, and we're gonna hold this for a little bit today. When we find our bridge pose, we're gonna start by laying flat on our back. So depending on how you feel today, some of you may, if you have low back pain, you might actually just keep your feet at the edge of the chair, and you may not come all the way up. So when we start, we're gonna start by just taking our feet to the edge of our chair or to our bed, and you're gonna start to lengthen your calves onto your edge. And from here, you have to kind of scooch a little bit closer. So eventually, we want to have a 90-degree angle from your knee to your hip point. So some of you might choose to stay here, taking just this as a restorative pose. But if you want a little bit more back bend today, I encourage you to take 2. If you have 3 blocks, you can take 3 blocks. For the back bend, you're gonna walk your feet back to the edge of the chair. You're gonna push into the edge of the chair, and you're gonna lift up. You're gonna place 1 block underneath your sacrum at your low back. And I want you just to check in first and see how that feels. Then lengthen and straighten your legs. You really have to get a little bit close to the edge of the chair for this, so that you can really have the support underneath your knees and underneath your calves. If you want to go up a level, it's actually more restorative to use more blocks. So if you can, and it feels okay in your low back today, try to put 2 blocks really underneath your sacrum at the low back to find the back bend. And from here, then start to lengthen and straighten your legs. You can put your palms down if you want a little bit less. If you want a little bit more, you might start to take your hands out wide into a T with the arms at the shoulders. You can also play with opposite hand to opposite elbow. So as you start to make your way into this pose, into this gentle back bend, we're going to hold this gentle back bend for about 3 minutes. And so our practice today, we're going to be working with some movement, and then we're going to come down and hold a pose for anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes. This first hold will only be 3 minutes. And so as you come into these poses, we want to move a little bit to move any energy out that we may not need, but we also want to start to play with putting the body into these more gentle and restorative postures so that we allow the body to really find the full benefit of the practice. And these gentle poses, sometimes in someone's body, they feel amazing, they feel great, and then maybe someone else's body, it's a lot of work. So the point of the chair and the point of the blocks is it's a little bit like scaffolding. When we are opening up parts of the body, think about finding a blueprint, and then when we find the blueprint, we have a plan. And when we have a good plan, we start to build a good framework. And the framework in our practice for yoga and gentle practice and restorative practice is really putting scaffolding like props. A chair is like a throne that we sit in. It elevates us, it lifts us up. And blocks are kind of like a little bit of a pillar. So they start to hold us in places where we may go or we may not go, so that we can really start to feel the full benefit of the practice. And so observing here, from here, come back to your awareness of the feet. Notice if they're turned out a little bit, which is fine. And just bringing that awareness to the big toe mound, the pinky toe mound, the center of the heel. Feel the heel of the foot, the arches of the feet, the inner and the outer arch. And then really feel the whole center of the foot. And then start to move up to the thighs and the pelvis. Use your imagination for all of this. Just becoming aware of your two buttock bones behind your back, and in front of you, your two pelvic bones. And then think that your perineum releases out towards perhaps the wall in front of you. Think that that pressing of the perineum also rises up through the chest and through the center of the head. So there's a rooting down, but there's also a rising up action that happens. And then focus on the torso. Feel all four sides of the torso, the front, the back, the right, the left. Keep drawing your pubic bone up. And allow your tailbone to release back and down into the blocks and into the framework of the props. And then allow the tips of your shoulder blades to really root and release down and in together. As you release the tips of the shoulder blades down and in, allow that to open and spread your collarbones really wide. Allow the tops of your biceps to turn out a little bit. If you need more space in the armpits and the shoulders, you can breathe a little bit more fully. And then lengthen through the sides of the neck. Go all the way up, opening through the ears, reaching up through the crown of the head. And then feel the whole body come together again. All of this with your imagination. Breathe in, up, down, left, right, front and back. Exhale, feel like you're coming back to yourself at your center. And so when we come into these poses, we're embodying them. We're embodying anything that arises, maybe simply observing what comes up, what doesn't come up, what's easy, what's more challenging. And we're finding the breath through all of it. Stay for one more deep breath, deep full breath in through the nose. Open exhale out through the mouth. Don't come straight out of this. I'm going to walk you through it. Start, if you had blocks, start by taking your feet back to the edge of your chair and just remove one block at a time. Push your feet into the edge of the chair, lift your hips up, slide one block off to the side, and then rest your sacrum onto that one block. And then stay. Stay for 10 breaths, but I want you to really put yourself on a breath count so that you're giving yourself a good framework. It's giving yourself a little bit of tapas. In yoga, we use the word tapas, which is discipline. And when we put ourselves on a count, we allow our mind to focus so that we can complete one full activity, and that builds determination. And then after those 10 breaths, push your feet back into the edge of your chair, lift your hips, and then slide any other props that you used off. Then this will allow your low back to completely release onto the mat. Replace your calves onto the edge of the chair And we'll be in this counter pose for 1 full minute. So anytime you back bend, if you found that to be restorative, just for your own home practice, anytime you find that to be restorative, you can then come into a neutral spine, or what looks like a neutral spine, allowing the low back to completely relax and release. And so 1 full minute in this transition. And again, maybe choosing to put yourself on a count. You can count the inhale to a count of 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause and begin again. And so anytime you find the mind wandering, maybe just simply focusing on the breath. Or if you feel distracted at home, I applaud you all, because the yoga practice can be distracting with pets or children, or even just the mundane task of always having laundry to do and change. So give yourself that count. If you're on a count of 4, inhale and exhale, take 1 more round. And then meet me in a comfortable seat, roll off to one side. And then take your chair off to one side if you used it. Have your 2 blocks nice and handy, and have your bolster, or you can use a blanket for this, nice and handy. I'm going to turn to face you, but you're welcome to be anywhere that feels supportive for you. Start with your legs nice and straight, just to let go of that stretch that you just took. And take your hands next to your hips. Take your hands, think about a clock again. Right hand towards 3, left hand towards 9. And really see if you can put your blocks a little bit so they're really in line with your hips and your pelvis. And then keep your legs nice and straight. Make 2 fists with your hands. Take your fist to the inner arches of your calves or your inner arches of your feet, and just measure if your feet are hip distance from here. And once you have that measurement, take your hands back on top of the blocks. Root your sits bones down. Put a slight micro bend into your knees, but don't move your heels when you bend your knees. And then start to push down through your sits bones. Lengthen your pubic bone forward to lift your sternum forward and up. That's it. And then slowly, slowly begin to press your thigh bones down. Think that your thigh bones press up towards your hips to begin to straighten through your legs. Do that 1 more time. Bend your knees, but don't move your heels. And then really find a little bit more of a tilt of the pelvis. Lengthen your pubic bone forward to lift your sternum up, and really use the blocks here, just like we did with the hands on the knees when we were seated, to widen through the collarbones. Think that the tips of your shoulder blades move down and in, but they also press a little bit more into your chest to widen your collarbones and lengthen your sternum to create more space. Start by straightening the legs, but only if it feels comfortable for you. Push your thighs down to begin to press your feet a little bit more straight and lengthen. And from here, we're going to take it into a Janusirsasana. So just keep your blocks just for now where they are. Take your right foot to your left thigh bone. Right foot to your left thigh bone. So some of us, when we come into, we're going to do revolve first. Some of us might use your bolster. I like to use a bolster because it brings the ground up a little bit to me. You can also, if you don't have a bolster, you just have a blanket, you can also stack your 2 blocks on their highest side and then put your blanket on top. So just depending on what feels most accessible for you. From here, take your left hand, turn your left palm up. And when you turn your left palm up, you're really opening through the collarbone of the left shoulder. And then start by just first rotating towards your right knee. Take your right hand behind you, tent the fingertips. So use this first like a twist. Really draw your left shoulder back towards 12 o'clock. Draw your right shoulder back towards 6 o'clock. And then really root your sits bones down, but think that your pubis moves you forward a little bit. Put a micro bend into your left knee, but don't move your heel. As you bend into your left knee, that action is going to really lift your sternum forward and up by lengthening your pubis forward and your tailbone back and down. Put that micro bend into your left knee a little bit more, and then allow that to really allow the right knee to come out a little bit more towards the ground. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So this is just allowing the pelvis to really start the action and the twist. Then from here, lengthen your left hand as far as it feels comfortable for you. You're going to reach your right arm straight up. From here, option to start to side bend. Reach your right hand towards your left toes. Or if that's too much for you today, you can take your hand to the back of your head, or you can also take your right hand on top of your right knee to start to rotate the torso open. This pose is called Pavrita Revolve Janusirasasana. And then start to lengthen, but use the bolster, use the prop underneath the left form really as that boundary. So you can inch a little bit more into it, really finding the fold. And if you feel like you're getting stuck in the fold, bend your left knee, maybe even keep the left knee bent. As you keep the left knee bent, think that that moves your pubis forward to lift your chest up, so you're finding more space across the low back at the sacrum. And then start to rotate your left rib cage a little bit more over towards your right knee. And the gaze can fall anywhere naturally where you'd like. 2 more breaths here. Breathing in, finding the space in the torso. Exhale as you rotate and side bend. 1 more breath, deep breath in. Deep full breath out. And then slowly we're going to come into traditional Janusirasasana. Turn your gaze towards your left toes. Take both hands either on top of your bolster, or you can reach for the toes. So just go to a level that feels like it's supported for you. If you have the flexibility, you can certainly remove the bolster or the props, but try to really keep something underneath the forearms as a boundary. If you can just sort of move them down a little bit. And then think that your sternum lifts you forward. Keep that bend in the left knee to drop the right knee down a little bit more. And the chin can stay tucked in if you want for a little bit more of a cat spine, or option to take the gaze forward towards the left toes. Really meet yourself where you are today. So all these boundary points that I use in my practices when I teach of find the body, really noticing where the bone structure is in the body, maybe noticing your right and your left, your up and your down, really puts yourself in the center of your own circumstances. So you can see what's around you, what's in front of you, what's behind you, what's to the left and to the right, what's up and down. So you really get a good awareness of your own personal territory. And then add the breath. 1 more breath in, full deep breath out. That's it. So nice. Tuck the chin in, come all the way back up. And then switch out the sides. You're going to switch your right leg, lengthen and straighten your right leg, and then pull your left sole of the foot in. So start your props on this same setup that you did on the first side. You can take a bolster or the 2 blocks and blanket. And then from here, we're just going to start by bending into your right knee. And if you switch sides, no worries. We're doing both sides at the same time, or that's one after one another. Bend your right knee. Think that the bend of your right knee moves your left leg down a little bit towards the ground. And from here, really root your sits bones down. Lift your pubic bone forward and up to lengthen your sternum up, and then allow your tailbone to root you, but allow it to also kind of lift you and rise you up at the same time. Then from here, take your right forearm, turn your right palm up to allow the forearm to drape down onto the bolster. And then just start by either taking the left hand behind you. If that's too much for you today, take your left hand to your left knee. And then start to rotate back a little bit. So you're getting a little bit more of this more open twist in the body. Think that your right shoulder moves to 12 o'clock. Your left shoulder moves back towards 6 o'clock. Really finding yourself at the center. X marks the spot in the center of the chest. And then we'll start to come into Pavrita Janusirasasana from here. revolving the pose first. Take your left hand, reach it straight up, and then either option that you took on the first side, you can reach forward towards the toes. Maybe you touch your hand to the back of the head, or replace your hand to your left knee. Whatever feels most intuitive into your body, move into that shape. And it's a side bend. So really rotate your right shoulder a little bit more towards 12 o'clock, your left shoulder back towards 6. That's it. Think that your right rib cage moves a little bit more towards your left knee. Your right rib cage moves towards your left knee. That's it. Gaze can fall anywhere naturally where it may. Stay for one more breath. And start to turn this into traditional Janushirasana. Turn the gaze towards your right toes. Walk your hands forward. Maybe both forms come on top of the props. You can reach for your toes. And then really focus on the thighs and the pelvis. Rebend through your right knee, but don't move your right heel. Allow the bend of the right knee. To think that the right thigh moves in, it really internally rotates. And as you do that, that internal rotation is going to release your left knee down just slightly towards the ground. So creating that space across the low back. And then find the pubic bone, lift the pubic bone forward so there's more space to the front of the torso. You can keep the bend into the right knee to allow yourself to inch your way forward and then start to soften, fold, and release. And then breathe up, down, right and left, front and back. Exhale, come back to yourself at the center. Do that again. Inhale, up, down, left and right, front and back. Exhale, feel like you're coming back to yourself at the center. Take 2 more breaths. One more breath in. One more breath out. And now slowly come back, tuck the chin in, roll all the way back up. Take your props, if you have them, and use them just off into the side. And then we're going to come into table pose. Meet me on the mat. Come into hands and knees, finding your table pose. Spread your hands evenly and well. Stack your shoulders on top of your wrist or your hips on top of your knees. And then just start by lengthening your right leg back and behind you. Touch your toes down. Come onto the ball of the foot. From here, really push your hands down. Think the arch of your hand pushes down, but it also lifts you out of your shoulders and out of your neck. Then get long through all 4 sides of the torso, the front, the back, the right, the left. Keep knitting the front of the ribcage in and up to engage through the abdominals from here. On an inhale, option to keep your right foot on the mat today, or option to float your toes up and off the mat. Reach your left hand out in front of you. You can stay here 3 breaths, or you can find 3 breaths of movement. On an inhale, pull your elbow in to meet your knee, round through the spine, a little bit of a cat spine. Exhale, lengthen, extend. Inhale, elbow to knee. Exhale, lengthen and extend. Inhale, elbow to knee. Exhale, lengthen and extend. Drop your left hand down. Drop your right foot down from here. And then slowly set your right knee back down. Lengthen and straighten your left leg back and behind you. Touch the toes down just to even out through the hips and the pelvis first. Come onto the back ball of the foot. And then push down through the hands to lift the shoulders a little bit more away from the ground. Draw the front of the ribcage in and up. Take the gaze out, everybody, towards 12 o'clock. And then really see if you can find yourself at the center. Think that your pubis moves towards 12. Your tailbone now moves back towards 6. And each armpit moves out a little bit more to the right and the left. The right armpit moves a little bit more towards 3 o'clock. The left armpit moves a little bit more towards 9 o'clock. Option to start to lift the left foot up and off the mat. Option to stay or reach the right hand out towards the front. 3 breaths. Inhale, elbow to knee around the spine. Exhale, lengthen and extend. Inhale, elbow to knee and round. Exhale, lengthen and extend. 1 more. Inhale, elbow to knee and round. Exhale, lengthen and extend. Set your right hand down. Set your left knee back down. And then we're going to grab a hold of our bolster and we're going to come into a restorative child's pose from here. So for those of us that have a bolster, take the bolster. The most important thing is you want to have your torso on the bolster and you want to have a place for your neck to rest. You don't want the head to be off the front. Take your bolster directly about towards your diaphragm to support your diaphragm and then turn your cheek to one side. You can hug the bolster as well if you're feeling unsettled. Actually, too, if you've been having trouble sleeping lately, something that's really nice and grounding is to take a block underneath to bring the bolster a little bit more up to you, so it really gives your torso that comfort and support of having the ground a little bit closer. And then start with your cheek just to whatever side feels more natural to you. We're going to be in this hold for a total of 6 minutes. We're going to do 3 minutes on each side. But if for any reason that your legs fall asleep, you can transition back into that table pose. You can also stand up if your legs fall asleep, okay? So sometimes that happens when we come into these restorative postures. And so find a breath. In these postures, we don't control the breath, but you can bring awareness to the breath. Just becoming aware of perhaps the 4 counts of the breath in and out. Maybe just noticing the container of the breath. There's 4 parts to the breath. 1, the inhale. 2, the pause at the top of the inhalation. 3, the exhalation. And then 4, the pause at the bottom of the exhalation. Notice if there's any tension through the mouth or the face. Relax the tongue from the roof of the mouth. Just soften through the jaw. And then just be aware of where you're connecting. Notice what parts of the body are connecting to the ground. Feel that sense of groundedness. Perhaps the feet, the forearms, the shin. Maybe if you've been feeling like you need a little bit more support lately, really using this imagery of the support of Mother Earth. Noticing the patterns of Mother Earth. Most of us are in Virginia right now, so you probably, like me, I opened up my sliding glass door this morning and I was hit with the wave of humidity. This gentle reminder of this beginning stages of transition from spring to summer. As we move from summer into fall, there's a harvest. And as we move from fall into winter, there's a dying of things off so that they can be rebirthed into spring. And in yoga, we practice patterns. In our more traditional sense of practice, we practice what's called a Surya Namaskar, which is a series of poses that repeat. In yoga, we use this pattern of repetition of doing one side and then another, or we repeat a pattern. Like today, we've used our clock as our pattern to remind us of nature. In nature, we see pattern. We see trees. We see seasons. We see the pattern of day, that we rise and dawn, we settle in dusk, and then it begins again, this pattern from dusk till dawn, and dawn to dusk. We know there's always a noon in the middle, and a midnight in the middle of that pattern. And so we find this repetition day in and day out. And within repetition, there is insight. Just like the breath breathes into us and out of us. It's a cycle of breathing in something new and letting something else with the exhale die out. And when you're ready to switch to the opposite cheek, switch to the opposite cheek. And so as we notice patterns, most of us are walking more. So we notice these patterns in nature. The pattern in our breath of our bone structure, our right and our left, our up and our down, our front and our back. Reminds us that we move through these cycles. Cycles repeat, but we move through them. They move around us. And so perhaps noticing any cycles in your day that you usually take. If there's a morning ritual, if there's a habit, allow these patterns to ground you, much like this connection back to Mother Earth. When you're ready, take 3 breaths. Put yourself on a count if you need to. Inhale 1, exhale 2. And when you're ready to come back, walk your hands back. Come all the way back, have a seat. Cross your legs at the shins or at the ankles, and have a seat either onto your bolster or onto, you can also sit onto your blanket if you want it, but try to elevate yourself a little bit so that you can, when you elevate yourself, you're moving your pelvis up so that you have more room to really tilt your pelvis forward. And then take your hands to the tops of your knees. Try to sit so that your ankles are a little bit more forward towards the front of your mat. So you're really giving your knees more space to relax down towards the ground. And we're going to do a couple rounds of breath work. We're going to do some seated breath work before we come into our last 2 poses, which are going to be twists and then find our Shavasana. Take your hands to your knees. Again, fit your knees into your hands. So your lower body is really this place of your stability. It moves us through life. And your upper body is your ability, and your top of your head up is your vision. So when we feel all these 3 parts together, we're really moving them as a whole. So take your hands to your knees and then start to turn yourself over to 3 o'clock to the right. Tilt back towards 6 o'clock and then move around yourself to 9, really moving in this clockwise direction. So really kind of moving around yourself. This is like you're churning the waters. Maybe if you've been like me, we've been doing a lot of just homemade lemonade. So that's like a kind of like a sugary concentrate, right? And if you don't stir it up, if you don't kind of mix it and churn it, to keep going with this around and around and around as I chat and talk about the breath. So if you don't churn something like a lemonade, it gets too sugary at the bottom, right? Or it gets too watery at the top. It doesn't taste quite right. So we use this imagery almost like you would churning your own waters, noticing where maybe you're feeling stuck, where you're feeling like you need to go, maybe feeling where you don't go. And then start to use this imagery of the clock, move around and forward and all the way around. So you're starting to move with time. You're starting your torso in 12, you're moving to 1, 2, 3, coming all the way around yourself and just starting to notice your day. So maybe noticing your day, how you started, maybe noticing any obstacles, maybe putting an obstacle in your day that you know you have to move around. So really making this personal. As you move around, just allow the breath to be fluid and natural so you can turn yourself. And you can turn yourself quickly, or you can turn yourself slowly. And then the next time you come back through center, go counterclockwise. You're moving against the grain of time. We can't move back. We can only move forward and with time, right? But we each have 24 hours in the day. We each get to choose how we spend our time. If we develop habits and patterns, if we sort of stir things up, or if we let them settle and we don't move through them. So again, maybe put something again personal that you need to move out of your body so that you can find more grounding, you can find that stability. And we're moving with our torsos that we can find our ability. Our right hand is our hand of our doing, the hand that signs the check, the hand that shakes the deal. And then our left hand is our hand of our feeling. It's kind of like our own home personal kitchen. We don't make a deal in the kitchen, right? We don't make a deal after we've had 2 glasses of wine. We want to find our true ability in the center of our chest. So really find yourself in the center as you move around and around and around yourself. Notice if one side feels easier than another. Maybe if one side feels a little bit harder, just start to see where you go and where you don't go. And then do that 2 more times. Find that count. After those 2 rounds, come back through center. And then 3 times go back and forth. Back and forth. Really finding your sternum at your center, finding your place of your mediation at your chest, so that you can mediate well between both sides. So that you can mediate well between your ability, your stability, and your vision, so you can feel yourself at your center. And then come all the way back. Switch the cross of the ankles, opposite shin in front. Come and have a seat. We're going to do the breath of seasons, since we did a lot with the seasons today. So this is new to you. Just imagine the breath in that 4 count. The 1, pause at the 2, 3, pause at the 4, all the way 4 counts. So start by maybe closing your eyes if you want to go inward today, or maybe just take the gaze down. And the breath of seasons goes like this. As you inhale, imagine that spring is rising up in front of you. Pause and hold the breath at the top for the ripening of summer. Down the back, exhale, imagine the breath traveling down your back for fall. Harvesting. Pause. Hold the breath for the ripening, or the death of winter. And we'll do that again. As you inhale, imagine spring rising in front of you. Hold the breath as summer ripens right above the crown of the head. Exhale for fall, descending down the back. Harvest. Hold the breath as you anticipate winter. And then do that again. Inhale, feel yourself within the seasons moving around you, spring rising. Pause as you ripen for summer. Exhale down the back for fall. Feel the hard work, the effort. Hold the breath out as you anticipate winter. And then really noticing that cycle coming again and again and again. You moving through it, you moving through that pattern, moving through all four seasons, moving through 24 hours in your own day, and then just see how you spend your time. Notice what obstacles might be in your way, or what patterns or habits you may want to change. All of this without judgment. And then pause, take a breath in, open the mouth, let it out through the mouth. Blink the eyes open if you've closed them. We're going to come onto our back now for our last 2 poses, which are going to be a restorative twist. If you have your bolster, you can also do this with your blanket. You're going to come onto your back and you're going to start on your right side. Come onto your back, lay on your right side. And I like to take either the bolster in between my thighs. This is nice if you have low back tension, or you can take one leg straight. The right leg will be straight if you're on the right side. Your left knee, shin, and ankle are all on the bolster. It's really important to make sure that the ankle isn't dangling off. When you dangle the ankle off, that actually makes a connection to your low back at your sacrum. So really see if you can get the whole knee supported. And then gentle twist hands to one side. If you're feeling like you may want to open up through the shoulders a little bit more today, straighten your left arm up, turn your left palm up so you're opening the arm at the shoulder and the collarbone. And then maybe take the gaze over, away from the knee. Even if that feels like it's too intense today, take the gaze towards the knee. So you're taking even sort of less stretch through the neck. So just decide what feels sustainable and move into any space so that you begin to commit again to stillness in the body and the practice. And then do a quick scan of the body from the head to the toes, observing where you're holding any tension in the body. Take 3 deep breaths in and out. Remind yourself not to rush. After those 3 breaths, come on your back, take your props with you, and move to the second side. Take 3 deep breaths in and out. And after those 3 rounds of breath, set yourself up for Shavasana. I'll offer taking your bolster and tucking it underneath your knees. As a nice variation. Come into more of a neutral spine. And then lay all the way back for final rest in Shavasana. As you stay on your back, I'll offer a reading. And the reading is from Pema Chodron. If you're not familiar with Pema Chodron, she's quite popular in the yoga world. She's a Buddhist nun, and all of her books are a delight. And the reading is called We Never Know. When we think that something is going to bring us pleasure, we don't know what's really going to happen. When we think something is going to give us misery, we don't know. Letting there be room for not knowing is the most important thing of all. We try to do what we think is going to help, but we don't know. We never know if we're going to fall flat or sit up tall. When there's a disappointment, we don't know if that's the end of the story. It may just be the beginning of a great adventure. I read somewhere about a family who had only one son. They were very poor. This son was extremely precious to them, and the only thing that mattered in his family was that he brought them financial support and prestige. Then he was thrown from a horse and crippled. It seemed like the end of their lives. 2 weeks after that, the army came to the village and took away all the healthy, strong men to fight in a war. But this young man was allowed to stay home and take care of his family. Life is like that. We don't know anything. We call something bad, we call it good, but really, we just don't know. On your next inhale, bring movement to fingers, movement to toes. And gently make your way on your right side. Before coming up to a comfortable seated pose, keep the eyes closed if that feels supportive for you today. And then draw the hands together, the heart, close the eyes. And let's close with a breath. Take a deep breath, inhale through the nose. Exhale out. Let it go. And blink the eyes open. Namaste, everyone. It's so nice to practice together on this
hot Virginia Friday. If you're in Virginia, I know some of you aren't. Let me know if you have any questions about any